Hi, welcome back to the County Pulse podcast. I'm Christy Henshaw, and we have Moms for America with us here, two of the representatives. And so we have Brooke Stevens and Carrie Bartholomew, and glad to have you guys with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to talk to you guys about Moms for America. Yeah. So let's kind of jump into this. Well, first tell us, who you are and kind of how you got involved, and then if you'll give us just a little rundown of Moms for America, that'd be great.
Sure. I'm the state director, which means I'm kind of over relationships. And the reason that we got involved, or the reason that we chose to bring Moms for America to Utah, it kind of was here before, or it was here, but it was just sort of kept in each other, in everyone's homes. And we thought that it should be stretched out across the entire state. We feel like its roles, which are to empower moms. I think that that's really huge. We need to be empowering moms right now. So empowering moms, promoting liberty, and raising the next generation of patriots. So I really love the education aspect, but I also really loved the heart aspect of going to these moms who've really been gaslit for the last 4, 8, 16 years and been told that what they believed is a dying breed. So I think that bringing that here and trying to build those communities to rebuild that connection is important. And then Brooke is the civic engagement director, and she can tell you all about that.
Okay. Before Moms for America, I was with Utah Parents United for 4 years. And what I loved about that was, as a board, we would discuss things. So we would feel like we're not alone. And so I had that group of, am I crazy? How come everybody's fighting about this? How come they think that this is crazy and the media is painting us as nut jobs? And so having that circle of friends to check my ideas with and feel normal was vital. And I wanted to bring that to every person. And so we're creating these very local communities through the cottage meetings of people that can get together. And, they used to have basket parties and, all those things a long time ago. I'm old. Tupperware parties or whatever. You think nobody does that anymore. Nobody has any time for it. But we're making it happen, and I'm realizing how vital it is. I just had a cottage meeting last Thursday, and it was really awesome because we had a wide variety of ages. One of our members was 27 years old, and I went on a walk with her today, and she keeps bringing in more people to all of these events, and especially the younger generation needs to feel this camaraderie and this, hey, you're not crazy, and let's talk. Right. And being in the same room together with different ages to discuss things. We discussed the 45 Principles of Communism by Cleon Skousen, and it was very enlightening. And most of us didn't know anything about it, but the questions we formed and the research we wanted to go to afterwards was so fun. And so it's kind of like, it's not a Tupperware party at all. Yeah. You get together and you get to discuss ideas that are affecting your life now.
When I was a young mom, Bunko was a really big.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this is the new version of political get together where we used to spend our free time, right?
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, so my sister had a group that was a homeschooling group, but the moms would get together when I had young kids, and I lived in her basement when my husband was finishing school, and she invited me to this group, and it changed my life. If you were to say where did I get my education, I don't consider my college degree where I feel I really learned what I know. It was that group that sparked it. And we did the founding documents and we went through them, and I could have discussions, these deep academic discussions with a group of moms. Yeah. And so for me, mom groups are near and dear to my heart.
Oh yeah.
So it was this really intense book group of political philosophy. Right. And I still will call some of them to this day and bounce ideas off of them. So yeah. And the other thing, and at the same time, we were doing this, intense studying. This is where I really feel I got my education, but I memorized the poem, and I'm sure you guys have heard it, but The Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
Yes, that's
actually our quote.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
So every time I see you guys, I went to your convention, or you guys had an event that was down in American Fork.
Our launch.
Yes, that was
Yes.
wonderful. And while I was sitting in the audience, I just kept like thinking to myself, the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, you're in good company here. I'm grateful for what you guys are doing, and yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the organization's goals and what you guys are trying to do across the state.
Right. Well, the first thing that we want to do is just let people know again that they're not alone. I think that's really important because I've gone to cottage meetings where it's just your introductory, right? You're just talking about how Kimberly started the group, how she became a patriot. And we're asking that question, what was the day you became a patriot? Because so many of us are patriotic, but what was your moment? And her moment, it was by a miracle that her husband was not at the Pentagon on 9/11. So to realize at that moment, that this country is really worth fighting for. And we're in a time where we're really truthfully facing a cultural revolution. I had one parent who reached out to me the other day and said, I went to a parent-teacher conference and somebody said, we just love your daughter. She's such a great activist. And so I think it's really important that we have truthful conversations and that we're there, because a lot of times people will say there's nothing to worry about in Utah. All is well in Zion. And sometimes you're in these meetings. One meeting I was in, and this woman, like, everything was fine. And then all of a sudden she just went and just started crying. And she said, I thought I was alone. And then another woman put her arm around her. And even if those women don't end up joining us, we hope they will. But even if they don't, they're finding each other. And I think that's really important that we are reaching across and doing that. And what we're trying to do is really counter the culture. So we're creating podcasts, we're creating blogs, we're doing, like Patriot camps, anything that we can do to reach people across the state, to reach moms.
And it's a place where moms can share their stories too. I remember when we first started Utah Parents United 4 years ago, and people would come to the classes and just sit there. And I'm like, hey, what made you want to come? And they're like, it's too late for my kid, but I have another one at home. And just the sorrow that I saw in their eyes, and they had lived it, and they wished they had had this before that. And hearing that from another mom about what happened to their child is so life-changing. It's like, wait, I need to teach my kid to love their country. I need to teach them that George Washington had bullet holes in his clothes and he wasn't killed, and 2 horses died underneath him. And that this country was founded on miracles and by God, because they're not going to learn that in school. And so it's up to the parents to teach their children these things, to instill in their soul this deep gratitude and fire up the patriotism. And so that's why we're here, to hear the stories from mom that will inspire us to be better parents of patriots as well.
I love that.
And also to empower. Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, when you said about the activist one, I would have said, an activist for what? What is my child an activist for? Right? Because I guess in a sense we all are. Right. It just depends on what for. And I have so many friends, like you guys probably do, that echo that parent who said, it's too late for my kid. And to be fair, I don't think it's too late for any of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there is a fear of parents sending their kid off to college, particularly, and having them come back with the opposite views that you raised them with.
Right.
That's scary. Really scary.
We have it in high schools.
Yeah.
So we can be afraid and concerned about college, but I think just that one of the things that we're very much rooted in is truth. And when we're empowering, we're not just empowering by saying, oh, you've got this. We're saying, here are the resources. And we are jam-packed with resources that are for free on our website. And we're just, this is what critical race theory is. And if you think it's been removed, you would be wrong, right? And so here's gender ideology. Like, here's what you need to understand. Here's how we approach it with compassion. That's another thing about Moms for America that I thought was so important, was that we need to bring back the heart. Because quite frankly, we are conservative. We're not necessarily Republican, but we are conservative. And our party is kind of fractured, where we turn against each other, even if we're like 98% we agree. But then you have that 2%, and we need to, what I say is, fight like a mother. So, and that doesn't mean anything added to the end. What it means is that what it means is that we fight, and we fight like our lives depended on it, right? But at the same time, we keep the joy, because our kids need to be able to learn with hope. They need to be able to progress and not necessarily know that anything is going on while we fight for them.
Well, and fighting in an American way is different. So here we have the social justice warriors, and it's basically a disruption of society because our society and our system doesn't work. And that's the lie that they're being fed. Because if you study all of history, there's never been a system like our government that has existed to give voice to factions in a peaceful way. Mm-hmm. And you can see that if you go to a legislative committee meeting. They line up and they give equal time to each side to hear the viewpoints. And, decorum, you can't yell. You're not screaming and fighting. Your way to fight is to research and convince people in a respectable way. And that's the American way, because we can, and we can have our voices heard. And teaching our children you're not going to be a social justice warrior. In order for you to fight, you get smart. You understand the law, you understand your rights, and you speak up in a way that people can hear it. You don't speak up in a way that's causing dissension. And then you celebrate other viewpoints as well. It's not like, because there's so many different conservative, oh, you're wrong. It's like, if you're speaking, you're not wrong. In my opinion, because that's how we guarantee freedom of speech, is to speak. And we want to allow those other voices to be heard in a way that brings a better, and believe that as we speak and listen to each other, it will bring better results, because we may consider things we haven't heard. And so it's not about who's right and who's wrong and accusing people of this and that. It's like, because we're Americans, all of us get to speak, and we're going to be better for that.
Yeah, I love, I'm a fan of Douglas Murray, and I actually really like him. He is he's from England.
Right, yes.
And he's gay, do you know?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
So he has a quote about freedom of speech, and he says, the answer to speech you don't like is more speech.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it doesn't mean that you're going to agree, but you don't shut it down.
Yes.
For sure. And I'm a big fan of that, and I appreciate his take on where we have come, and the cultural revolution that we are fighting. It's so fun to hear people from different perspectives like his, and see where we're going. So, free speech, my goodness. If we don't have it, it's the cornerstone of everything that we have.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And if we lose it, we lose everything. So, the other thing is that we have this culture in the state of Utah about disagreeing kindly or saying things super nice. And I have always thought it's such a weird thing to have truth take the secondary position,
right,
or third, to nice speech. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have that you shouldn't be respectful when you talk to people, but to have people self-censor, which is what that does. So I definitely like truth. For me is number one in the hierarchy of speech.
Right.
And how you say it, we can deal with that later, but I would rather hear the truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And
yeah. I don't like guessing and trying to understand what's going on below the surface. To me, that's not, but that's a personality thing. And I recognize there are different personalities, but I'm like, just tell it to me. I'll tell you anything I feel. It's going to be out there. You're going to know what it is. And that's a comfort, but that's how I was raised. So I haven't been sure, I'm from out of state, but I haven't been sure how to like work with people where they are. And I want to work with their level. Like, I was teaching a junior high class, and I brought an African drum. My kids are African American, they're adopted. And so at one of the blessing ceremonies, we had this drum, and I was teaching them about talking drums. And so they each got a chance to hit it. And usually I'm like, wham! And just as loud as I could, my kids wham this drum. And it was just like barely tapping it. And I'm like, what's happening? Where's their voice? Where's their desire to like make a mark, And so I was just like, how do I encourage the self-expression? How do I encourage that it's not a scary thing, it's a freeing thing?
Yeah.
And especially in this culture of, I don't know how to bring that voice to the forefront,
Yeah. Yeah. So you have a double culture war going on. You have the Utah culture war. So, all right. Well, we're going to take a break for just a second. We'll be back.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, welcome back to the County Pulse podcast, and we are with Moms for America, Carrie and Brooke, and I wanted to ask you guys a question because I feel like some of the moms that I talk to that are most frustrated, and I don't know if you guys have solutions for this, but it is where they have children who have different views than them right now. You know, whether they picked them up from TikTok, or they came home from college, or they have some friends, right? And we're seeing it come in through all of these areas. And I'm wondering what suggestion you guys have for moms when they have these conversations with kids, or resources that maybe that they can be directed to, because some of them are very frustrated. They clearly, don't want to do the wrong thing because they feel like it's either a little volatile or a tipping point. And so I know some moms who have, instead of talking about it, it's become kind of taboo subject. Certain areas that they can't talk about in their own home, shockingly,
right?
Which blows my mind. But when you interject the victim mentality, and then they start to put this idea of false boundaries around what the communication can be, I've seen some of this happen. So anyway, just wondering your guys' thoughts on that subject, and if you guys see some of the same stuff with your friends.
Yeah, I think the main thing that you have to do is be rooted in truth. If you're rooted in truth and you know that where you stand, and the things you're saying from a place of grace. So I will not lie to a person. I'm not going to treat them badly. I'm not going to say what's wrong with you, anything like that. I'm just not going to lie to a person, because I believe that there's a large amount of people. Well, I don't believe it. I know it's true. There's a large amount of people who especially take gender confusion. There's a lot of people who outgrow it. Yeah. They just do. And they have a really hard time when they do outgrow it, going, why were people willing to lie to me? So one of the things I'm doing with my students starting tomorrow is I'm reading them The Emperor's New Clothes. Mm. And I'm talking to them about why people would lie. And it's hard when it's in your family, because you don't want your family to break apart. You don't want people to, you don't want your kids to hate you, right? But we have to look at them with compassion. And I think one of the things, like we always say, we need to go back to the Constitution. But I think that the root of what America's values are, its first value is redemption. And when you have redemption, when you see somebody as being redeemable and yourself as being redeemable, then you can have grace for both of you. Mm-hmm. And then I just think that you look at your children and you love your children because they're your children. But personally, I will not lie. I just won't do it.
And so there is some therapists, one of the only ones in the United States, who focus on gender dysphoria and without affirming. And it's called genderharmony.institute. And they have something called the integrity investment model, which means that you have integrity by not giving up on your viewpoint, but also you invest in the relationship. And they're willing to work with parents and the child who has gender dysphoria and bring them into the conversation and guide the parents on how to have those conversations with their child so that they're continually building that relationship without giving up their own viewpoint. And I think that's something that everybody can learn, because you think, what the idea has been pushed, like if you don't affirm me by using my pronouns, then you're hating me and I'm going to commit suicide. And it's like, but what about my freedom of speech, and what about my beliefs? And I can still love another person without believing the same way. And that's what seems like everybody's forgotten. So the integrity investment model has been the best thing that I've found for parents to look into when they're finding those differences of opinion with their children.
I think also we can come back to education. So if we understand that all of this confusion comes down to a cultural revolution, and then we start teaching our kids what a cultural revolution is, and then it's a little bit away from them. It's not so personal when you say, in China, this is what happened. In Russia, this is what happened. Then they'll go, wow, I can't believe people fell for that, right? And then all
You're
of
like,
a sudden,
Yeah, the Chinese one is so compelling. So
Right.
when I found out that they did a very similar thing before Mao took over.
Right.
And they had the girls wearing like the boy jumper.
Chopping off their hair.
Cutting their hair
Yep.
really short. And you could see, like, if you get rid of the time period, you just look at the model of how they were doing it.
Right.
The correlation was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
frightening.
It's very frightening.
Have you read Red Scarf Girl?
No.
In Red Scarf Girl, I was reading it with my students and I said, okay, so start underlining whatever seems familiar today. Like, one thing they're supposed to say is, we blame our teachers for giving us too much homework because it stresses us out. And so they're underlining those marks. And finally, one of my students said, I feel like I should just dump the book in yellow paint because it's so exact. And that was just a ninth grader. So
Yeah. So you and I teach high school. Or
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
in high school, right?
Well, I teach in homeschools, but
okay.
and I teach middle and high school. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I have found, and even with my own children, is that downplaying a lot of the things that they're looking for a reaction for seems to work
Yes.
pretty well.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, things are complicated. We'll see where things go from here, stuff like
yeah.
that.
Right.
So I had a friend who had a daughter who she had intercepted an Amazon package, and it was a binder. Right.
Okay,
And so
yeah.
her daughter had come out as gay, and then she had said, I'm non-binary. And this friend is actually a lesbian. So
Sure.
she was like, look, I have no obstacles here in having this conversation.
Right.
But her daughter had come to her and said, Mom, and this is a 16-year-old, I've done the research, and I think that, hormones is probably the direction I need to go. And so we went hiking, me and this friend. She goes, what in the world does a 16-year-old saying I've done the research mean, right?
Right.
And that they think this is...
TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is the right thing for them. And so I said, well, here's what I would do. You can do what you want, but how girlfriends talk when they're out exercising. I said, what I would do is say, that is something that maybe we could look into at a future date, when you get a little older, because honestly, being a teenager is rough and things change. And so this is what's so funny to me is I haven't seen the conversation of, a lot of the kids will say things like, I don't feel comfortable in my body, so that means X, Y, or Z. And I'm
right.
like, what teenager ever felt comfortable in their body?
Right.
Right? Like,
Right.
I don't think I've ever met one. Like, that is the stage that you
Yes.
are in.
Yes.
And so, like, giving voice to that, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means there's something totally normal with you.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, normalizing that stuff and just saying, that's fine, let's just wait. And I've seen
Right.
some parents say, let's just wait. And they've grown out of it. They've, gone, and they look back and they go, oh, I was kind of in a phase.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's probably not, that's just one scenario. I'm sure there's other cases where they had a different outcome. But to say, and you guys probably know the statistics on this, but the number of gender affirming facilities that
Right.
existed both in the United States and Canada, like 5 years ago was like 5 or less, and now there's over 100.
Right.
So we're in something that is not medical, it's cultural,
Right.
Yes.
which you guys know.
And they're going away in Europe, though. They're not.
Yes.
They're not as prevalent. So Europe is turning the other way.
Okay.
And so we should start doing that as well. But I think it's important that we normalize those feelings of like, yeah, it's hard to feel like you belong. Your body feels strange, and also normalizing. Like I tell my daughter, she's a tomboy. She dresses like a boy. She plays football with the boys.
Yeah.
She has boys as her friends. I'm like, that's what I did. I played football every recess with the
That's what I
boys.
did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just saying, and she's like, I'm okay, Mom. I'm like, yes, that's totally normal to be dressing like this and wanting to play football. And,
Yeah.
and just giving them that permission to step away from the cultural expectations, because it's funny that they're even using cultural expectations to say you're a girl or a boy because girls feel this way, boys feel this
Right.
way. But they're trying to define, there's no logic in there because
Right.
they're using something they've defined themselves. It's like if male and female doesn't exist and you're using the stereotypes of male and female to say that it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's just
The
doesn't make
irony
sense.
that their attempt to take them outside of the box puts them in a box that they can't function in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was a tomboy too. My youngest is a tomboy. And I just go, I would like to just say, in defense of all the tomboys growing up and all the drama boys, right? The theater boys.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, come on, there's a place for you.
Yes.
You do not have to hurt your body. There's a place for you. And there always
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
In
Yep.
society.
Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart. And I think if the kids knew that is a completely normal thing to feel, weird in your body as an adolescent.
Yeah.
I mean, welcome to growing up.
I think the thing that we need to remember is that if we want to heal our kids, we need to be their person.
Yeah.
As long as we're their person and we have the relationship with them, not their ear pods or whatever they are, and not TikTok, but really if we are their person, if they can come home and say, hey, this is going on, I need help. My son still texts me, even though the phones are about to leave, right? But my son still texts me and is like, Mom, this is ridiculous. And I'm like right there to say, what's going on, bud?
Yeah.
So like, how can you support your child? And today we were listening to something, someone was giving us a coaching lesson, and they were talking about the term social distancing that we had. And there's a reason they said social, right? There's a reason that they said social and not physical distancing. They wanted us to alienate ourselves, including in our own families. So, so we're staring at our Pinterest. Our kids have their ear pods on, and I'm probably using the wrong term and dating myself, but
we wouldn't know. Yeah. We wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Sounds fine to me.
But I just think that if we can counter. Yeah. And that's the whole point. That is why we are here for Moms for America. Mm-hmm. How do we counter in every way possible? Because there are groups in Utah that put on the, hey, we're the new version of this party, and we are going to help you be enlightened and open-minded and whatever else. And it's like, no, truth matters. Mm-hmm. So we're going to say truth matters, and we're going to help as many people hear that message, even if it's a whisper or whether it's yelling, like a yell, whatever it is, we're just going to say truth matters, and we're going to stand with you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So just one more thing. I noticed a couple of years ago that my kids were saying some of this stuff, bringing it home. Had a new son-in-law that came into the family, and I realized that they were getting sick of hearing me say stuff. Mm-hmm. And so what I did, and I don't know if this would work for other people, but I want to share it because I really did see a turnaround with my family. I put us all on a thread. A Telegram thread, because I don't know what other app does this, but they were sick of hearing it from me. And so I do this family thread, and I would drop stuff in there, and then all of a sudden they'd start talking about it. So it wasn't coming from me anymore. So we were having a common social media channel.
Yeah.
So that we weren't in our own echo chamber, just feeling like we couldn't communicate.
Right.
And then pretty soon my kids, we would have conversations, and they weren't going like, oh, Mom, and rolling their eyes.
Yeah.
They had something to say about, it'd be like one of the pro-life people at one of the colleges. I'd put a clip in there or whatever. And it really turned things around, like significantly. Not that I felt like they were, but they were annoyed with it. They could see like the generational drift that was happening.
Right.
It was fantastic. That was probably the biggest thing I did that brought my kids kind of to put their algorithm a little more family centered and in line with our platform. But.
So you basically did a Telegram channel. You posted clips of media. Was extended family on this too?
It's just my kids,
just you and your kids with clips to watch together.
My husband. Just
that's a great idea.
I called it the Fam Bam, and I'd be like, "Hey, have you guys seen this?" And then they would, but then it wasn't coming from me.
I like what you said about the generational, like the generational gap, because that's another thing that we're about. So we have a group called Future Moms, right? So, and then we also have Grandma Grizzlies. And so we're trying to have those mentoring relationships and also to learn from the younger generation, because they know and are experiencing things that we have no idea about. And so it's nice to have all three of them together. So sometimes we think, oh, it's, we're just a mom's group, and older people are like, I can't be a part of this. And no, and we also need our girls to want to embrace womanhood, because it's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of awful sometimes, but kind of, but kind of awesome.
We know what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay, so how can people get in touch with you guys?
UtahMomsForAmerica.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on Twitter and Rumble and YouTube
Instagram,
and X, all of it.
Facebook.
So if
Yeah.
they want to get together and have those conversations that you talked about, they
Yeah.
can find you there.
And
Yeah.
we'd love to come out and speak to any groups. So if anybody wants us to come out, please don't ask me to come and act. I'm a little
She's
bit.
very good.
I'm a little tired of it though. I have things to say. So
I love
so yeah. So we would like to just come and spread some joy and also help people have more a discernment, because I think what is that be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. And I think that's something that we need to embrace that message.
Yeah. Well, there is no driving force like a mama bear.
Yeah.
It's real.
True.
Yeah.
It's totally real. So, so thank you guys for what you do.
Thank you so
Like
much.
every time I see Moms for America, I go to one of your events. I'm just like, yes, like Moms United, Moms Together, Moms like, you know, for the children of
Yeah.
America. It truly is the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world.
Absolutely.
Thank you for all the work you do.
Yeah.
you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having us.
Thanks for joining
Thank
us.
you. Bye.